Hey guys, welcome to Lavender Mind. I'm your host, Katie Blanco. Today I am joined with Pia Mailhot-Leichter. She is, yeah, that was tough. She's a creative partner, a certified coach. She is an author, an entrepreneur, and her path has been anything but ordinary. She graduated summa cum laude from NYU. She produced economic documents, worked as an award-winning creative director for some of the biggest brands, including IKEA and Volvo, among many others. She is, her bio goes on and on and on. I had to condense it so that we could keep this in a decent amount of time for y'all today. But she's also the founder of Collective Studio, and she is the author of Welcome to the Creative Club, Make Your Life the Biggest Art Project, which I will get into quite a bit today because it is such an amazing book. And today I just want to dive in and welcome you to the show. I'm so honored to have you here today. I loved your book so much. So nice to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm really excited to co-create together today.
No, absolutely. You say often that creativity is not something that we do, but it's something that, or it just helps us respond to the challenges in our lives. And I love that so much. I loved everything in your book so much. I'm going to fan crush all day today. Hopefully,
Yay.
not give the whole book away. Um, so, I just want to take some deep dives into your life and also what you're offering to the world. Um, Maybe you could take us down the road of your early days where you were in global branding and marketing, maybe that season of life, what your business was like then, and what made you pivot completely to coaching and doing what you do now, and maybe explain to those that are new to you what you're doing these days.
Sure. Okay, let's go back in time. I actually produced an economic documentary on Bahrain after I graduated from NYU because it seemed like the interesting choice. I had an opportunity to work at the UNDP in a contract role, but it was a contract role. The salary was a pittance, and I had a huge loan on my back. So I was like, ugh. But it was exciting because it was communications and marketing. But I actually had already interned and then worked for the United Nations Development Program, when I lived in Sri Lanka before. So I'm really happy it exists in the world, but it wasn't the shining light on the hill. So when I had the other opportunity, I was like, ooh, adventure, ooh, creativity, script writing, this is going to be great. And it turns out that I actually had to sell ad space to produce the documentary in the Middle East. And I was like, oh, and after studying international affairs and thinking that I was going to try to use, my own creativity and communication to make an impact in the world, I could say that was a hard landing. But with some hindsight, I realized it taught me so much about sales, about pitching, about what it takes sometimes to make something real in the world. Because we were in front of CEOs and ministers and lots of different people. So after that, I actually stopped that after 8 months, and was looking into jobs between Paris and London, and I had an interview with an agency, creative agency, that doing branding and marketing and PR and all different types of things, because the CEO really believed that in order to give the client sort of the best suggested solution, we needed to have a broad depth and range of what we offered and what we could do with a lot of different experts. So it was actually really nice, because if you go to a traditional advertising agency, they might tell you that an advertising campaign is what you need. And so she really wanted to be agnostic in the sense of like, okay, let's really see what the real commercial challenge is and see what's needed to solve it. So she was fascinating. She's still a good friend of mine, was actually American, but in London. And we connected fast. And that was my foray into the world of agencies. And I still remember to this day in London on Marylebone Road in the carpeted meeting room, my very first brainstorm and coming up with different ideas to, the usual raise awareness, drive sales, whatever it was, for our client. And it was just fascinating. We were just popping ideas on the wall and building concepts off one another. And I just remembered in that moment, I thought, oh my God, I get paid to do this. This is great. I really felt at home. It was a really fun and creative space to be in. And that was my entry into the world of, I guess we could call it branding, marketing, advertising, kind of all in one in London. And then I grew up in that career basically for the next well over a decade, working first as a creative strategist, a copywriter, and then associate creative director, and then creative director at multiple agencies, London, different agencies in London. And then I moved to Copenhagen, which is where I'm based today. And then also worked for brands, some big brands also outside of Sweden. And so that was my journey. And in many ways, it was extremely exciting, and it felt really new and fresh until after a decade and change of doing it. And the very last agency, it wasn't really an agency, it was a purpose-driven creative consultancy that I worked in, was very different, and it wasn't only about concepting and writing or ideas. It was that, but it was also about facilitation and how to drive change within leadership if they're looking to make a positive impact in the world through their business. And that sort of in some way kind of led me into the world of coaching. Also, I had someone who worked in strategic design who had posted something on LinkedIn about what she was doing for coaching. And I was just like, oh, girl, we have to meet. We have to have coffee. You have to tell me what you're doing. So she told me about Coactive Training Institute, based out of California. And this is what she was doing. And I kind of fell in head first while I was also at the consultancy. And what was really fascinating about that was it showed me that coaching has so many similarities with creativity, even though they might seem worlds apart. In some way they are, but in some very fundamental ways that they're very connected, because coaching is the art of transformation. And so is creativity. Creativity, we take like no thing and we turn it into something. And in coaching, it's done in very different ways. This transformation usually comes from heightened self-awareness that we're able to try to help our clients reach that point by witnessing, asking powerful questions, sharing intuitive hits. But it's not really about me, like AKA the coach. It's not about my answers, my advice, nothing to do with me. My role is to help people find their own answers, not give any, that's where it differs very much from at least the creative work I was doing, because it's very much about you. Like, who could come up with the best idea in the least amount of time on budget, where this was such a very different way of co-creating and also relating. It was fascinating. So I was doing that. All of that was happening. And I had this voice in the back of my head that was poking me at night when I was trying to go to sleep, saying, what might happen if you channeled your creativity into building your own damn business, your own dream, your own brand? And I was like, oh, it's felt really, really exciting. But I was scared because I knew I had a cushy job. It was good on paper, everything. I mean, using creativity for good, great salary. And so the fear kind of won. It was like, yeah, that's a nice idea. But at the same time, I could feel that I knew what it was. I knew where the ceiling was, the walls were, the floor was. I knew what it could be and it was limited in possibility. But what was on the other side felt limitless, and that felt really exciting and also very frightening. So it took, my mother passed suddenly in 2021, and besides being the most difficult thing I've ever gone through, she gave me a parting gift, and that gift was the gift of courage. It was a reminder that this life is finite. And this is a limited series. We all have a hidden expiration date, and we don't know when that's going to be, our numbers are going to be called. So if not now, when? Like, what am I waiting for? And what am I so afraid of when one day I'm going to lose everything? What am I so afraid of losing now? And that was really the push, if you will, that created that leap and pivot moment into building Collective Studio, where I had creativity still very much part of who I am and what I do, but I also had coaching, and I was like, oof, how are these things gonna come together? Like, I didn't know. And what it showed me, which is reinforced a lesson that's been reinforced over and over again in my life, is that, if we wait until we know, we'll be waiting a long time. And the only way that we find out is by starting, is by doing. And so after a year, dots started to connect, but it takes time, and it takes faith, and it takes a little dash of rebellion, and it takes courage. And so, yeah, that's the shortest version I can give of where I came from and how I landed here.
Yeah, so many things in the book and what you just said resonate with me so much. I think we all, maybe not everybody has that moment of, I know you say when your mom passed away, that moment, maybe, I know for me, I've had friends, or for also my leukemia as a child definitely has always made me want to step into that. Well, nobody wants to step into the fear, but you feel like pulled to it. And I love your reference in your book about the 7-Eleven. I don't want to give all of your stuff away, but
It's okay.
she, it's almost, it's our intuition. It's that voice that calls. And I love that so much. Is this something that you help your clients do, to go from that idea to this vision? Do you help them walk through the steps? And with you, I know you used a lot of your background. How do you help women walk through and go from A to B when it's so scary? What does that look like with a client?
Well, usually people come to me because they're ready for some kind of shift in some way. And they're at what I call a sticky juncture. And a sticky juncture is when what used to work isn't really doing it for you anymore. You might have been really successful, but it's just not lighting you up in the same way. And something else is calling you. It could be a feeling of like stuckness and confusion. Like, I don't know what it is, but I know I'm meant for more than this, or it could be maybe there is more clarity. Like, I'm ready to pivot. I'm ready to grow, but I'm not sure how to get from A to Z or A to H or whatever it is. And I would like to do that in partnership. So I tailor creative journeys for each of my clients. So it really depends on where they are, and where they want to be. And then I have my mixing board of like coaching and all my creative skills of like brand strategy, copywriting, creative direction, and then, the coaching skills. So I'll turn the volumes up or down depending on who it is and what they need. So I have clients that might come on a creative, journey where they're, hey, I have the yearning. I think I can see the fuzzy outline, but it's not clear. And I would really love to figure out, to make that more defined, and to really understand myself, like what's pushing me, what's driving me, what's fueling me, what's stopping me. Why am I not just doing the thing? And to really dive deeper to explore what they're really yearning to create, and then to create a safe space to courageously explore that together and birth that idea. I sometimes call myself a creative midwife because it's just an easier way to kind of understand what it is that I'm helping people with. And then some people are further along on their journey. For example, I worked with an interior designer. I use her case often because it was a really powerful one, and it was. So interior designer who really wanted to build a lifestyle brand. She's like, I'm meant for more than this. Interior design is one part of what I do, but it's only one part. I want to impact the lives of 1 million women. Oh, okay, let's talk. So and then she's like, but I have no idea how to get there. And so that was actually working. The coaching volume was, the coaching is always there at some capacity, but it was lower. And then turning up the volume and all, okay, well, let's look at like the brand architecture and strategy and like the vision and the mission and everything that the foundation of what it would take to make that powerful pivot and shift, everything also down to how you express it. So really listening. So using those coaching skills of really, really listening and feeling into what someone is saying to then channel that through the lens of my own creativity and writing. So it was a really powerful partnership. Because at the end of the day, I think the sweet spot between coaching and creativity is it's not only what you're yearning to create next, because we're changeable, fluid beings. There's always going to be like, okay, what's next? If we're on that growth trajectory. Well, all of us are, but if we're accelerating, and then change is happening. But it's not only what we're looking to create next, it's who we get to become in the process.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
I love how you say, I guess for those listening that may be like, I am not creative at all. You often say in the book how we're all hardwired for creativity, how we all have this inside. Um, what does it take for somebody who maybe doesn't feel creative at all? I'm sure you hear that a lot. Um, I don't even like, I feel like a lot of people say that. They say, I don't feel creative at all. Like, is there like a little tip of how to maybe tap into that? Do you feel like a lot of people have blocks in the way of their creativity? And I know you say we all are creators.
Well, there's multiple doors I can walk through to answer that question. I'm going to walk through the first one. So the first door is that we are always creating from the moment we wake up to the moment our head hits the pillow at night. We are just not always consciously creating.
Mhm.
We are creating our experience of life. We are creating our next scene. We are deciding what our costume design is when we wake up in the morning. We are figuring out what the set is. The script, the soundtrack. We'll put on Spotify. Like we'll make dinner when there's 3 things left in the fridge and come up with something. The way that we move through life, especially when we're in touch with like our this word has been bandied about, but I can't think of a better one. With our like authentic, unique signature of who we are, whoo, there's nothing more creative than that. But it requires being in touch with that because sometimes we can lose connection to who we are and what our path might look like and start to follow the paths of others, or that person did this really well, maybe I should do that, or that we might have heard stories about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it, and we kind of become disconnected from our creative power, from who we are, because the antithesis of creativity is parroting or copying, right?
Um,
So I think it's a reminder that you are always creating. You just might not be consciously creating. And the closer you are to your unique sauce, to what makes you you, because there's no other Katie, I was gonna say Blanco, sorry,
yeah,
Palenko, no, in the world, not like you. No one can do it the way you do it, And so I think that is also that originality is your creative source, right? But we have to be in touch with it. So that's one part. And you can find evidence that you're constantly creating all the time, right? The second thing is that, what stops us from being creative is the belief that, well, I'm not creative. And I think beliefs are interesting. They're worth getting curious about. We develop or inherit beliefs or script them based on, usually they serve us. They serve us in some way, even if they're limiting, they're still serving us. So if the belief is, well, I'm not creative, well, then you don't have to take the risk to create what really matters to you, or to create the thing that you're dying to create. And you don't have to risk ridicule or rejection or criticism. And so it's safer just to say, I'm not a creative type.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then, so I think it's like, but at some point that doesn't help anymore. That starts to harm because it limits us. And then I think we need to smash the myth, that creativity is reserved for the chosen few, right? By
Mhm.
expanding the very definition of creativity. Creativity is not just regulated to the domain of beret wearing artists. It's not just artistic expression. Creativity lives in virtually every single domain. And I
Yes.
remember I was reading an academic journal and I was like, every domain. And then it's like, and even crime. And it's like, oh, I didn't think of that, but crime is really creative. Not that I'm advocating creating in that way, but it's everywhere. Creativity is how we solve everyday challenges in unique, unexpected, original, sometimes delightful ways every single day.
No,
And
it's
and
so true. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. So it's not just acting or dancing. Of course, that's a big part. That's also a part of it, of creative expression, but it's artistic expression, and creativity is bigger than that. It's everywhere.
It is. And I love how, and in the book and today, you talk about um, being, I mean, I know the word is overused, but being authentic, because I think, especially if you are a creator and maybe you are online, it's so easy to get so distracted by all the noise of what to do. It can be debilitating in itself because there are so many ways that you can forget who you are and start to mimic other people. That is a whole nother rabbit hole that just is truly debilitating because there's so many different paths as creators that we can go down. So I love that it's like when I read multiple pieces that cover this in your book, it was like a refresh button for me too, to remember that you're right. I am the only Katie Blanco. I don't have to be, not that she's amazing, but like Gabby Bernstein or whoever, like only we bring what we have to this world. And so many people need that, they need that true version of us. And I love how you give permission for that because um, there's a lot of noise and it can be very confusing. It can be confusing if you're new to this as well. So I love that so much. I also just your book, a few things, guys. It is she covers so many topics. It's kind of like Steel Magnolias. It has you like crying and like blushing and just feeling all the feels. You share so much vulnerability. It's such a beautiful read. It's poetic and it's a memoir. It's just it's got all the elements. It's got self-development, which I nerd out on, but I think even if you're not a self-development seeker, you would enjoy this book because she's been on so many adventures. And so I know one thing I really enjoyed about the way that you laid out your book was it's not super traditional, and the fact that it had like you have part memoir, part creative, like the poetry aspect, but then you have they're called the field guide where you give prompts in the book. I want to ask first, like, what made you lay your book out like that? And then also, because I loved it, it made me really self-reflect. And then also, like, maybe you could share one today that you feel is powerful for those listening to this.
Absolutely. So, my editor, who is absolutely wonderful, Shayna Heath, shout out to her. She told me, if you're asking people to make life their biggest art project, you better make this book your biggest art project. And there is a structure, but yet within that, I play. And so, what I really wanted to do was to create, once again, like these different doors that people can walk through. and different doors will appear to different people. Some people might want to hear the neuroscience behind creativity to really say, oh, yeah, I am naturally creative. Some people might need that. Some people might want to hear personal stories about how I lost and found my creative power. And there's that vulnerability and like, oh, okay, now I kind of see what she means. And maybe there's something that they can take with them from that, or that feels resonant, or that, oh, there's something that they relate to or connect to, even if our stories are different. And that could be another door. And poetry is another door for me because there's something about poetry that bypasses the analytical mind and kind of hits you in the solar plexus. And it makes you feel something without necessarily having to understand it. And for some of the things I was trying to convey, that felt really important to me. So I was like, oh, let's do it. Let's try at certain points in the book to also add that doorway in. Um, and then there are also interviews with certain people like Betsy Johnson, the fashion designer. Like, okay, that's another door, someone else's experience who's a quote unquote capital C creative. And even like to my clients and my therapist, Christina, who's wonderful. So really bringing the voices of women who have inspired me throughout really important pivotal moments in my journey. And then field work. And the field work was really important because this is a book about creativity. So it would be really odd if I was just inviting people to consume. I really wanted people to get prompts to invite themselves to create. And when I say create, it's also create the next version of yourself, not the better one, just the more you version, or create something in your life, create the next scene, create your own stories, create your own beliefs, like creativity writ large, you know? And so that felt really important to have integrated into the book as well. I picked fieldwork that had, when I went through my coaching certification, some of those really landed with me. And then I can also see which pieces of fieldwork my clients really, that really impacted them. So that was kind of the background for which ones to choose. And also, of course, which ones are relevant to the specific chapters. So that's kind of the backstory to the design of the book internally. And then the fieldwork question. It's interesting because there's one that isn't in the book that through having conversations with different people feels like it's really powerful. So I'm going to try it. And I kind of teased it out earlier, but the book in many ways is an invitation to become the creative director of your life. Of your life. Like you can sit on that, you know, that black creative director's chair with your name on the back and eat only blue M&Ms, and like you get to do that. And sometimes I think we forget, like it's easy to forget, and we can feel like an extra on set, and you know, life is just happening to us, and forget that life is happening through us and with us and for us, right? And that we take part in that co-creation. And not only do we take part, we get to sit in that creative director's chair. And that feels very important. So if I ask someone, let's say someone who's listening, become the creative director of your life, it could be, whew, ask like, where do I begin? Or that can feel really, really big. And so a fun piece of field work that I like is like, okay, imagine you're going to creatively direct your next scene. Like, what is the next scene you want to create for yourself? For me, that could look like if I'm having a day where I don't know, it's maybe not, I'm feeling like I've lost the plot, or things are just kind of, my mood needs to shift or something needs to happen. I can say, all right, I'm going to creatively direct my next scene because I get to do that. And I'm going to put on my old Guns N' Roses t-shirt with holes in it and put, you know, bright red lipstick on. And I'm going to have some cherry kombucha and put on doshi or whatever on the speaker in my kitchen. And I'm just going to dance. And that, I mean, imagine it has all the recipe for like set design, costume design, score, all of it. It's a scene, and it's a scene in my life that I get to create. And I think just doing that behavior, just doing that is a beautiful way of really embodying that belief. It's not just, oh, this Pia is saying become the creative director of my life. It's like you're actually doing it. You're proving to yourself that of course you can do it. And it's sometimes the power lives in the small, not only the big. It's those small, beautiful, micro creative direction moments and scenes that you create throughout any given day that reminds you to sit in that chair more and more often. So that's my biggest invitation to people. Unfortunately, that didn't make it in the book. I mean, I was thinking that should have made it into the book, but it's kind of emerged and appeared through these lovely co-created conversations, which also shows that creativity is collaboration. There's so many good ideas that come from moments where we're together and talking and exploring and sharing and building.
No, it's so powerful. I think, especially for somebody listening that may have not even had that rewrite of that story, maybe their story is they don't even know that they have that chair. They don't even know that they have that voice. And so just the awareness to know, like, no, I can, even if it's so small, even if it's me putting on red lipstick today or going to get a kombucha, like whatever that is, once you start taking those baby steps, before you know it, you're looking back and you don't even recognize who you were anymore. And I love that so much. And it's so powerful. I think especially for somebody that might be new to self-development, but even if you're not, because I'm like a nerd and I was like reading through like, oh my God, yes, like, I am in my director's chair. I do have my red lipstick on and I'm drinking my ginger kombucha. Like it's even though that maybe that wasn't in the book, you said that wasn't in the book, but um it just gives so much power to know that we do direct our lives and that it's not all these things happening to us all the time. I have a lot of different listeners, but I would say I do have a lot of moms, and I think that your day can look like dinner and PTA, to-dos, whatever. I think everybody feels that way. And to know that we do have this creative ability to show up in the way that we choose is so powerful. Um, I love that so much. And you mentioned collaboration, and I loved that you referenced in the book Einstein and the artist that we see as like this one person that was so amazing. And you talk about how we see them as doing everything alone and on their own. But in reality, and it's fascinating when you read about this, I've read a lot about like the wives of famous people, like, hey, they were like a lot of the background to these people that we thought were, it was just them. Um, how would you say that collaboration and community is helpful? And if someone is looking for something like that, where could we find it? Maybe is this something that you offer? A-
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
mean,
I want
everything.
to
And
know more about that.
that's why I call it, I call it creatively partnering. I like creatively partner with visionary rebels, unconventional dreamers, and inspired misfits to bring their visions, wild visions and ventures into the world to create an impact. In other words, I help people create, whether it's brands, businesses, creative ventures, art. That's what I do, that creative midwife role. And the people that I usually work with are people who do things differently to make a difference. That's really the red thread. But so partnership is key, I think, for collaboration and co-creation. It's just, I mean, it doesn't have to be with me. It can be with anyone.
Uh,
Some of it, oftentimes there's another piece of field work. It's like we have this idea that there's this lone creative genius like living in the woods. That's what stopped, doing things on their own in the garage or wherever it is. That's what stopped me from writing the book. Actually, in a book in the first place. It was like, oh, I can't imagine like going into a cottage somewhere by myself around a lake and I don't have a pipe and how am I gonna do that all by myself? And it
yeah.
turns out, of course, I don't have to. No one does. I have a team of editors that I worked with, people that I collaborated with. I'm doing the writing, but people are giving you feedback and working with you through the process. I mean, we just have to watch the credits of any film roll, and we can see that, anything. Look what a co-creation that is. Like everything in life is a co-creation. Rather, we could be co-creating, even people who seemingly do things alone are co-creating with the history of the people who came before them and all the
Yeah,
ideas from their own lives. Like Einstein was in a Swiss patent office for many years before he started doing the work that he became very famous for. And during that time, he was just kind of imbibing different ideas for patents, And so in some ways, that's also a co-creative, a collaboration. So I think there's so many examples, and we just, for whatever reason, we have a sticky cultural story that, there are these lone geniuses. I think it's just because it's sexy in the media, but it's just not true. It's just not. And I would say to anyone, if you're struggling with something, whatever it might be, pair up with someone, see what happens. Not for them to give advice unless you're asking for it, but more to say, hey, there's something I'd like to brainstorm on, or like shoot some ideas together about. Like I have this thing and I'm not quite sure, and see what happens. A lot
yeah,
can happen just from a conversation or going to a cafe and playing someone you trust and telling them what you need, and seeing what emerges in that space. So it's really, really powerful. And so that's another myth I really want to smash, because and there's the other level of co-creation. We are co-creating with life.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's beautiful. And there will be circumstances and challenges that are presented to us in life. That's how it goes for all of us. Like it's just,
right. Sadly.
but Uh,
And
well,
beautiful,
it depends
beautifully.
on the frame. Like one of my dear friends, Paul, he calls them. Excuse my language. I'm gonna curse, so watch out if everyone has kids around. Like a fucking growth opportunity. It's an FGO, and
Right.
sometimes those really, really big, meaty challenges are actually big growth opportunities. And even just seeing it that way can shift the energy. It's pretty, I practice that and I'm like, oh yes, it's just another FGO. Like, okay, let's see. What do I have to learn here? What is being asked of me? How is this serving me in some way? So what I was just going to say was, circumstances and challenges will be presented to us. And then we are at choice. We always get to choose how we creatively respond to life. That's the co-creation. Something happens, we get to choose how we want to respond. And usually when we create difference between stimulus and response, and this is inspired by Viktor Frankl, you know, there's freedom in that space because we're not reacting. Reacting is kind of like replaying the past because it's usually just autopilot. It's like a default, something trigger. And so if we can create space between stimulus and response, we can really activate our creativity. Because
100%.
right?
Yes.
Because a knee-jerk reaction is not creative. You're just repeating how you've always reacted to things. But a creative response, that's different. I was like, ooh, let me take a step back here and see, how do I want to creatively respond to this? And that's just a beautiful practice.
It is a practice and it takes practice. And one thing, you talk about, I love Viktor Frankl. I talk about him quite a bit. One thing that I know helped me, and I would imagine has helped you too, with that space, like for years, I didn't have that space. Like it was like I had the thing happen and I reacted. And then, you know, through meditation and a lot of self-awareness and digging deep, it's possible, even if you don't have it today, if you're listening to this and you're like, I just respond right away. I don't know what pause you're talking about. Like, it's possible to create that pause through taking a deep dive, through reading books like yours to really learn that you can create that space through meditation, journaling, walking in nature, whatever that is for somebody listening to this, however you can create that pause. And I love that you talk about that because it's nice to know that we have that control too, and that the way that we show up is also the way that we see our world and how we perceive it. And it's just beautiful. And I love your friend's reference. Tell me the initials again. An F.
FGO,
FGO. That's so real. And
isn't it?
yeah, it's so helpful to have it too, because just having that fun reference when life hits
Exactly.
is so
So,
nice to just have it to draw upon. That is so awesome.
and
Um,
some humor, it's some grace
oh,
and space and
humor.
some humor. Like I think it's Oscar Wilde who said life is too important to be taken seriously. Like when I start to get a little rigid, I can feel myself like, ooh, I like, girl, just don't take yourself so serious. Like it's not that serious. Like, come on, you know? And then I kind of can giggle at myself a bit. And it's the same with reactions. Like hey, listen, we are gonna have triggers. It's part of what makes us human, and our triggers are pointing us to something that might need looking at. And that's it. There's not nothing that's wrong. It's just something that needs looking at. And so when I when I get triggered, it's more about like trying to get curious and just to create here's I'll give it like a very you could create the space. You don't have to even I love meditating and I advocate for it, but if that's not your jam, you could just take a beat if someone triggers you. Like what I do is I'm like, I'm not going to respond for 24 hours before any big decisions. Or if something is like stirring something up, you can feel when something's getting stirred up in you. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to sit with that. And it can feel really uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but it feels fulfilling on the other side because it will pass. And you can also have compassion for yourself while you're sitting in it, right? Like, not judging oneself. Like, if something comes up, it's like, all right, that's how I'm feeling. Let me respect, honor the feeling. I don't have to follow it, don't have to react to it, but it's here. What is it here to tell me? Feelings are data. That's also interesting. It gives
Yeah.
us a bit of like we can become the observer. Let's say you get triggered and something comes up, anger, whatever, frustration, whatever it might be. And you go, oh, that's interesting. What is frustration trying to tell me? And sometimes what it's telling you is that there's a value, something that you value greatly that's being stepped on by someone else. That's a data point. That's some insight for you. Like, oh, I really value, like, I really want to, that person is dishonoring my value of commitment, just making something up. And
Yeah.
then you'd be like, oh, how interesting. That's really important to me. That's why I'm getting frustrated. All right. Well, how do I want to respond to that? Let me sit with that. Let me feel that frustration. And that's okay. I'm feeling it. Again, something that's important to me is being stepped on. All right. I'm going to sit with that because it's really more an indication of what's happening within you than it's the other person, right? And then I think the more we can hold ourselves in compassion, more we will naturally hold other people in compassion. It starts here. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of words, but I was just trying to make it more tangible when we talk about like the space between things. It could be just those reflections and like literally creating space, not responding right
No,
away.
absolutely. And it's so important to even reflect to know your core values. And you speak about that a lot in the book, which is something maybe if, someone is new to this work, they could reflect on within themselves. Maybe they don't even know that. I know you had mentioned freedom is your big
Mm.
one. And I'm like, oh man, me too. And I can, that's a big one if I feel like, you know, that's being triggered in some way, like I'm not like I'm feeling tight and not free. And you speak of that in your book when you talked about some seasons in life where you were not feeling like that free Pia that needs to be expressed in the world. And I feel like a lot of people can probably really relate to that. So many relatable things in your book. This has been such a pleasure. You are amazing. Again, guys, I think this book is such a deep dive if you're looking for a way to self reflect and just uh, do all the things and feel all the feelings because it's again like a steel magnolias of books with crying and laughing and like blushing. It's so good. So tell us how we can find you. Like where are you hanging out these days?
Well, home base is collective.studio, and that's where you can find out more about my work, book a chemistry call, sign up for my newsletter if you want to continue the conversation in other ways, find out everything about my book, which is available on Amazon.com and bookshop.org and Barnes and Noble and different places. And now Audible. I released the audiobook 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Not very long. And I narrated
It's
that.
amazing. I listened to it. Your voice is so beautiful. Like I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That
I
was
would recommend that. Yeah.
thank you so much. So that's and I think newsletters are how I call them field notes. I guess that makes sense. Notes from the field. It feels like a longer conversation. I'm on LinkedIn and other places, but I really enjoy I'm exploring deeper ways of connecting with people. So if anyone has any ideas too, I did some live like creative club coffee moments and different things, and it's been a fun series of experiments. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And I also, Katie, want to say how amazing you are. Your energy, your warmth, your openness, your shine, and everything that you bring, not only to this conversation, but to all the people listening. And I just want to say thank you for your creativity and for showing up in the way you do and in the way only you can.
Oh, that really means a lot. Thank you. This was a very fun co-creation. I knew it would be when I read your book and took a deep dive into the work you're doing. The world needs it, and I really appreciate you being here. So, all right, guys, I know that you'll enjoy this episode, and together, let's plant some seeds of resilience and joy. And I hope y'all have an amazing day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Let's see.